Hello, hello, hello. This is Adrienne Berg, and this is the Ageless Traveler. And of course, we've been theming our episodes, and the theme of this episode are hotels and accommodations. And who better to speak with us is one of our board members, our advisory board members, a friend of mine for many, many years. His name is Peter Anderson. He's a professor. He's somebody who teaches hotels how they can best manage the hotel so that guests like you really feel welcome. So we're going to go behind the scenes today. Some of the things that you have asked me about with regard to hotels, because times really have changed. So thank you, Peter, for being with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Well, all right, let's get right into it. Today we have choices for accommodations we never had before. For example, people would traditionally go to a hotel or maybe a motel. Now they've got Airbnb, Vrbo, all these homes are owned by individuals. As you see it, somebody in hotel management, why has this taken off? What do you think is the value that the traveler sees in these kinds of accommodations? Are hotels missing something?
Well, they're really, in many ways, while the structure is identical, that you have a place where you can sleep and take care of your hygiene needs, a hotel offers a very curated, codified experience where your bathrooms, your beds, your food and beverage are all relatively the same. And especially when you get into specific franchises, they're identical because you know exactly what you're buying.
You expect, right.
When you go to an Airbnb or a VRBO or an alternative opportunity, that's not always for the faint of heart because there are some uncertainties, and inherent in those uncertainties are sometimes very happy surprises, a sense of place, a connection to the community. Depending on the configuration, you may develop a friendship with your hosts. So one is like going and visiting and staying with a friend, and the other is like going and staying in an environment where you're just purchasing the environment. So I would say to the traveler, if you're going for a very limited amount of time, like a long weekend type of thing, right, a hotel might meet your needs more easily because they have the support structures built in to them. If you're going for a little bit longer stay and you're looking for a sense of place and a level of authenticity, you may find that easier to achieve through a VRBO.
Yeah, it's very interesting because at the beginning it was a matter of price. It was simply less expensive, particularly if you had a family with you and you had you didn't really want to go to the breakfast at a hotel because it's usually expensive. This way you could bring your own food. But now it seems to have become very different. It's the experience that people are looking for. And sometimes they want to feel that they're part of a community, and that does help. But today there's another issue, and that is safety. More and more people have told me, and it's unfortunate, that their barrier to travel is they're concerned about safety. So let's go deep into the hotels today. Are they worried about it? Have they made any changes in this kind of security? Because really, when there is visible security, that gets a little antsy. People don't want to see somebody. I once did that in Asia. I saw a couple of guys with guns sitting, and I knew they were security. It was not a good thing, but they had to do it. You tell me, are they doing new things because of issues of fear these days?
Well, you're right on the money. When you can see the security, you don't feel more secure. You wonder how deep the danger is, that if you can see it, then, it must be a significant problem. So to that end, hotels do a lot of things to address safety and security. And safety is really a function of the person itself, that you are safe from harm. Security is a function that your valuables and your documents, your luggage, and hotels have always been highly mindful of locking systems and monitoring access. And if you'll notice, especially in lower ended hotels where you have a front door and sometimes side entrances, usually after dark, the side entrances and the back entrances are locked, except if you have a room key that you can access the building. Now, so that implies if you're not a guest, you have to use the front door, and then the front door is monitored through the front desk. So there's a lot of very subtle things that hotels classically do to ensure security. Housekeeping can come in once a day to clean your room. Most jurisdictions have a caveat where your general manager or the management of the hotel can do a wellness check in the room so they can enter if they feel there might be something going on or there might be a guest safety that's compromised, and whether that's through their own device or an external situation. So that's the hotel side of it. I would say from an Airbnb type of environment or from a non-traditional lodging perspective, safety is usually a function of locks and cameras.
Right, right, right. One of the things I laugh at, but maybe you can shed some light on this, is the safe. There's always a safe particularly in the chain type of hotels. And it's a little tiny safe. And it looks to me like the kind of thing that one blow, and you can take all the family jewels with you. So is that just for show, or does it really connect to anything? What should we look at with that valuables? Should we put it in the safe or not?
At the risk of being very glib, it's like any level of safety or security, any lock, any camera can be circumvented, broken. So what they're really doing is they're putting barriers to entry. That, right. For instance, if your passport or your computer is in a locked environment, it makes it just one more hurdle that the potential thief would have to jump over. And once again, if you have something of significance and they're aware of it, they may, pun intended, bring out the big guns to get into it. But by and large, it's more of a deterrent. But I would say the safes in hotels, if you'll notice, are mounted to a hard surface, so you can't just pick up the safe and take it somewhere. And if you have something that's really truly valuable, you can go old school and put it in a lockbox behind the front desk.
Yeah, well, you could always ask for that. That's very true. Now, the other thing, of course, we started with the idea of the cost. This is mystifying to me. I know that hotels all have ratings. 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars. Now I was in Dubai in a 6-star. So you've got all these stars. But sometimes the prices for the 3 stars are more expensive than for the 4, particularly between the 3 and 4. We have a lot of booking opportunities for our listeners. So you can actually go on the Ageless Traveler and book through booking.com and hotel.com and all these other ones with discounts. So when you do that, you'll see if it's 3 stars, 4 stars. Often the 4 stars are cheaper than the 3 stars. I don't get it. How do they price?
Well, that's a great question, Adrienne. And quite frankly, pricing is done a couple of different ways. I can first start from an American perspective, that we have what we call the asking rate or the rack rate. And that's usually implies that's the highest rate possible. And basically all rates from that are discounted. And they're discounted based on time of year, seasonality, length of stay. And that is a mechanism to keep hoteliers from price gouging. During the Olympics in Brazil, where those rules didn't apply, some hotel rates were 9 and 10 times what they normally were because the demand so far outstripped the supply. We try to get around that with our rack rate. Now, but you're saying, so what does happen when your demand is exorbitant because of a citywide convention or
here in Palm Springs, we have Coachella and then Stagecoach. So you could forget it. It's very, very expensive.
Exactly. And so what they do there is they put minimums. So you can't stay for just 1 night or 2 nights. You have a 4 or 5 night minimum, and that will guarantee a certain amount of revenue to the hotel operator.
So now let's go back to the stars. Once again, many times I'll go to a boutique hotel in Europe, particularly in Europe, and it's wonderful. It's memorable. I love it. But it might not have a restaurant. I might have to go to the fabulous little cafe next door, which is owned by somebody else. And it'll have a low star rating, 2 or 3, because it doesn't have a gym. But the furnishings, the ambiance are fabulous. So how do these stars go? Is it all because you have less amenities that you get a lower star rating? Or is it the quality of the furniture and the linens or staff training? How does stars get allocated?
Well, there's a lot of criteria that defines how many stars you get. And some of them make a lot of sense in terms of the size of the room. Like a 2-star hotel room might be about 250 square feet.
I see. Okay.
Whereas a 3-star hotel room might be 350. And by the time you get to the four-star rating, the rooms are even larger. But there's subtle things like does a light come on when you open your closet door? Do you have a closet? Some 2-star hotels just kind of have a nook and a bar that you hang your clothes on. So there are definite physical attributes to developing stars, but I would invite you to look at the star rating in terms of low and high, and the point. And I would say there's very many similarities between a 2 and a 3-star hotel and a 4 and a 5-star hotel, but the points of differentiation are often the level of service, the not always the amenities.
The more intangibles.
Exactly. And that's a little harder to pin down, but that's sometimes why you can have a 3-star hotel that physically conforms to a lower standard, but they have a higher level of service because their employee to guest ratio is higher, because their training is better, possibly because their location is better, and there's a joie de vivre around the hotel itself. We approach it from a very empirical perspective in terms of flowers in the lobby, hours of room service, those kinds of things, which actually are the attributes of where the stars are given. But you get that difference that your 4-star is going to be less expensive than your 3-star, sometimes because of service and sometimes because of just market factors.
Interesting. Now we're going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to tell everybody how they can get the best deal in hotels through the Ageless Traveler. When we come back, I'm going to talk about some of the things that Ageless Travelers do care about. Like sometimes it would be special amenities or accessible rooms. We certainly do care about the environment and over tourism. So we'll be talking about hotels in that context. So don't you guys go anywhere. Now, you know by now that we are here to make sure that lifelong travel is easy for you. And there's a lot of things that you can accomplish simply by going onto our website. And you know where it is. It's agelesstraveler.com. You'll see it in the show notes. One of the things you can do is get a subscription free of charge to our weekly newsletter. And in it, you'll find these podcasts, also articles, hints and tips, and of course, discounts. But if you're ready to book or you're looking to see how you want to plan a trip, the best thing you could do at agelesstraveler.com is take a look at what we call travel discount page. There you will find all the names you know: booking.com, hotel.com, TripAdvisor, Cruise It, if you're looking for the best and greatest discounts on cruises. Simply use that and you'll be accomplishing two things. You'll definitely be getting the best bang for your travel buck through the Ageless Traveler apps that we're using, and you will also be supporting us so that we can continue to bring you this important information and really support you so you never stop traveling. Take a look at travel discounts at agelesstraveler.com. And now we're back, and we're here with one of our advisory board members. And that will remind me to remind you that you can also ask questions. You simply go to the Ask Adrian section in the show notes right here as you're listening to us. And you can send questions. I will be able to bring those to Peter, answer questions about specific hotels and spas and other things in which he's always on top of. And you can ask me questions, and we will not only read those questions on our show if you want us to, but we will actually have you on to ask and get those straightened out for you so you never stop traveling. So let's go back, Peter. Now, there are certain things that we always look at with regard to the Ageless Traveler. One of it is sometimes we have mobility issues, or sometimes our travel companion has issues, and we need an accessible room. I'm going to tell you, I think they're ugly, even if they are compliant. What is this all about? How do hotels see? Is it a pain in the butt for them, or are they really realizing how much business they're getting from travelers that need accessible rooms?
Yes. To both sides of that.
Both sides. Okay.
So I will agree with you that sometimes the special needs rooms appear to be a little less aesthetically pleasing because it's function over form. And I think we have to thread that needle back to the 1990 Americans with Disability Act. You become acutely aware of, if somebody is in a wheelchair and all of a sudden there's no lift, there's no ramps, that or using the toilet becomes problematic because the bathroom is too small. So while it can be problematic when you are building a hotel or you're renovating a hotel, there's some real benefits to it. Now, the rule of thumb is usually 1% of your room inventory needs to be allocated to address special needs. My guess is that the savvy hotelier is going to increase that as our population ages, because there's going to be a higher percentage of people that might need those special needs. Now, in terms of how do you get them, you're a frequent traveler. If you're a member of a rewards program, it should be in your profile, which helps you spell out, what you're requiring. We need a room that's ADA accessible. We need a room that accommodates somebody who has vision loss, or because a lot of the special needs, I would say a high majority, focus on mobility, but a lot of them are also with hearing and sight and whatnot. And so consequently, if you have it in your profile, it helps short circuit some of the miscommunication. That doesn't mean you shouldn't also say, can you verify that this is in my profile? And also when you make your reservation, reiterating that so that you can ensure that your needs are being addressed.
Sometimes you go to a hotel and they're full. And they say to you, would you like an accessible room? Will you accept an accessible room, even though you don't need it? So I know that they can rent an accessible room to people who have no issues. But what if you don't have any issues? You just like accessible rooms because they are bigger, usually. They do have those showers, which are barrier free. Some people are putting them in their home because they love them, not
right.
because they need them. So is there any restrictions? Can somebody who has you can't park in a disabled parking space, but can you ask for an accessible room, even though you don't need it?
Of course you can. And unlike a parking space where you don't really have control over the volume of people that might need a parking space.
Yes.
In a hotel, they have a pretty good idea if they have any accessible people coming in. I mean, not to minimize the need for special consideration, but even at a 1% of your inventory, the time they're used is relatively low.
All right, now let's go on to another issue that baby boomers get accused that we don't care about the environment. In fact, we care a lot about the environment, but I'm beginning to suspect that hotels are taking advantage of that. They're still taking advantage of COVID. We only clean your room once a week unless you ask for it or you pay for it. That is definitely so. And it's been 2 years already more. Or reuse your towel. If I wanted to reuse my towel, I would stay home. I don't want to reuse my towel. So what do you think? Are they really into the sustainability and environmental protection, or is just another way to save a few bucks and get the same amount of money for a room?
Again, your great questions, yes to both answers. So let me unpack that a little bit for you. That when they want me to reuse my towel, I will usually, if I'm feeling particularly feisty, I will call down the front desk, or I'll go online and see do they have a sustainability program, because sustainability is about energy, it's about water consumption, it's about landscaping, because especially in places like the Southwest where water is at a premium, if you haven't xeriscaped your environment, you're probably overusing water to create a lush tropical paradise in a desert.
Yeah.
So I bring that up, that if the sustainability is comprehensive and it shows up in their restaurants, they don't provide water unless you ask for it. They have low flow showers. They have new laundry equipment where you don't have to get the water of your washers up to 160 degrees for sanitation if you use low phosphate detergents. There's so many levels of sustainability that the average guest doesn't see, that if they're comprehensive, I'll reuse my towel. If they're doing it as a ploy to save on laundry, maybe not, I might not be quite so inclined. So you might want to take a little bit of a slightly deeper dive when you look at sustainability.
So I'm going to take a little bit of a break, but I will say that I do use a lot of hotels, and I often do ask for additional service, particularly if they'll tell me, and I'm there for a whole week, that they only clean once a week. And this is what I've discovered. Very often, the answer is yes. They'll at least do it every other day, which is an amazing thing to me, but that is true. And of course, then you really nicely tip the person who's your cleaner. But the other thing they often do is they say, yes, we'll do it, but it'll cost you $30 a day extra or $10 a day extra. And I think it's very useful, the information you gave me, Peter, to see how much this really is part of an overall program, for sustainability or what it's all about. Because if they tell me it's COVID, I know that they're just, trying to save it up. All right, well, we will be right back. And I want to challenge Peter this time to get inside the heads of the folks that he's a consultant to, which is people who run and operate hotels, and ask him when they really pay attention to TripAdvisor and all those places where we write reviews. Don't you guys go anywhere. So you know that one of the things we are doing is we are bringing a trip to you. You know that the Ageless Traveler, not travel agents, I am a traveler. I've been to over 100, now about 130 countries. In September of this year, 2025, we will be taking you on a wonderful Colette safari. However, we've gotten a particularly good price, and we have only until May 30th for you to respond. So if you're hearing this, or if you're a member of our free newsletter, which you will get every week, for the next few weeks, you will be able to see an entire itinerary, the cost, which is so reasonable for 2 full weeks of very high-end, very first-class travel in Kenya and Tanzania. If you're interested, we would love to take a minimum of 10 of you, a maximum of 30 of you. Let us know, and we will be doing that on September 14th for 2 weeks starting in Nairobi. Fantastic. So that's our terrific safari. You'll get all of the information on our show notes, and you'll be able to travel with us. We make lifelong travel easy, and so do not be concerned that you've always wanted to go on safari and you think maybe it's a little bit too rough for you. It will not be. Let us know. It's a great adventure we could have together. We're talking today with Peter Anderson, a great friend of mine, a professor in the world of tour management and hotel management, and a consultant to many of the hotel chains and names you know. So, Peter, one of the things that's happened in the last few years, and it's really now run of the mill, is that the consumer writes a review online. They may do it on their own Facebook or LinkedIn, but they can go to a TripAdvisor, and we actually have TripAdvisor on the Ageless Traveler. You can go directly there and say what you want to say about it. And then other people read it, and maybe they get turned off or turned on. I'm interested to know if the hotels read it, because sometimes I'll see a hotel replying and they'll apologize and whatever. And most of the time, I don't see any response from a hotel. So how do they take this?
Well, most hotels, especially the ones worth their salt, take it very seriously. And there's a couple of reasons why they do that. First and foremost is that there are hotels that hire secret shoppers, come in and give us the honest feedback. This is not somebody from corporate. They're not being impressed. This is Joe Average coming into your hotel. What is their experience? And so a good hotelier is going to take TripAdvisor feedback very seriously. They're basically unpaid secret shoppers, if you will. Right. Now, so a lot of time, in travel, we all know there's always errors, mistakes, mishaps, things out of your control. So it's not the problem, it's how they address the problem.
Right.
And to that end, when a hotel will respond to a complaint or to a comment that shows a good faith desire to make sure that the guest experience is what they promised. So the hotel gets double duty, not only in showing that they're sincere in their ability to accommodate their guest needs, but it also gives them some very valuable feedback as to what they need to pay attention to improve their operations. So I would say that TripAdvisor should not be ignored or neglected, or I should say possibly it's neglected at the operator's own peril, because these can be pearls of wisdom or keen insight that there's no way a general manager will understand because they can't be everywhere all the time.
I wrote a book many years ago with a fantastic business developer, and it was called How Good Guys Grow Rich. And it was really his philosophy of having taken $20,000 and selling his business for $55 million. And that was money in those days. Now that would have been about $1 billion. And he said the best thing that could happen to you is a complaint. Because if you clarify that complaint and fix it, you get a better customer than if they had no complaint at all. Because they really, really love you and they will go back, but you have to do it right. And TripAdvisor becomes a conduit to doing it right. So let's go back into the brains of the hotel operators. Right now, consumers are looking at things like eco lodges and special experiences, and the hotel is just part of it. What do you see as a trend about all these wellness components to travel? Are they here to stay? Is it a passing phase? What do you think?
The Global Wellness that puts out an annual report. They commission it independently. They publish it in the fall. And so they did it in 2020, November of 2024 in Scotland, which reflected operating revenues for 2023. And the wellness industry is $5.8 trillion globally.
Wow.
And it's growing at about 12% annually. And they break it into about 11 different silos, whether it's hotels or fitness or beauty. And so, quite frankly, to answer your question, this is not a passing fancy, that this is something that's here to stay. And a lot of that has to do with what you are embodying in terms of traveling on a regular basis. I mean, there was a time when travel was only for the most elite, and it was a very rarefied thing, and it wasn't integrated into somebody's lifestyle. Now, whether it's a retiree for leisure or a business person for their job, being in a hotel for a good portion of every month means that you want to have the quality of your life that you have at home in your natural environment when you're on the road. And so that brings a rise to menus with healthy options and a fitness facility in your hotel. And we're even seeing 2-star hotels where they're expanding the size and the scope of their workout rooms because they realize that's what's going to bring guests in. Right. So I would say that wellness, lifestyle, fitness is something that is only, we're going to see it happen more and more. And a little bit like sustainability, there's a lot of behind the scenes things.
So I will not personally go to a hotel at any star rating that doesn't have some place for me to exercise, at least for a few minutes, even if it's one treadmill and a couple of weights, because I've got to sustain my health. So I see that as baseline. But I'm also very intrigued with eco lodges and retreats. You don't feel that's a fad. That's something that's here to stay.
No, because effectively, especially in some of these places that have focused programs to enhance your lifestyle, people are looking at this more as tuition than a hotel bill.
Uh-huh.
And so it's much easier to justify the expense and to understand the return on your investment when you're going away for a week and maybe you're taking cooking classes, but instead of going to Italy or France and everything starts with a stick of butter and a quart of cream, or a liter of cream, I should say. It's how can you make phenomenal regional food that's healthy? And so there are takeaways that traditionally used to be all about indulgence, and now it's kind of like long-term indulgence for longevity.
Fantastic. Well, I call those experiential souvenirs. At our age, we really don't need another glass with a picture of a flag on it, because we have a lot of that stuff and we don't know how to get rid of it anymore. But we do want takeaways, and the fact that we feel healthier, or we know we have a new habit. These are all new reasons for travel. So we're going to take our last break here, and we're going to talk about Mother's Day, which is coming up. Mother's Day is coming up, and we have some great gifts for all of you. Intelligent threads. Those are wonderful blouses and socks and T-shirts that actually take the pain out of walking when you're sightseeing. If you're a little arthritic, this is the kind of thing that you want. If you love to bring your own pillow on a trip, but it really is very difficult to pack, you'll see Sleep Keeper, which allows mom, and of course Father's Day is coming up too, and dad, to take their own pillow. And it really scrunches it in without one of those things where you have to, get the air out of everything. No, you don't need any of that. So these are just a couple of the things that are wonderful. And what I love, of course, is my signature hat. Everybody asks me because they see me on social media with my hat. It makes you look like an adventurer. So I decided to put that hat on there too, and you can get that as well. So this is all on agelesstraveler.com, and take a look at our section, which we call Travel Discounts. Why? Because even all of these gifts are at special discounts just for you. And now we're back. We're back in our last segment. And this actually is a question that Peter Anderson, who is our emeritus here, he's a professor of hotel management. He's also on our advisory board. He's a consultant. He actually asked me to ask, have our needs changed in recent years? And if so, how have the hotels been responding? So let's hear what's behind that question, Peter.
Well, hotels have become so specialized in addressing very specific needs of the travelers. And I think social media has created a forum for dialogue, whether it's through TripAdvisor or any kind of a thread where people, when they like something, they can comment. When they don't like something, they can comment, which is unfortunately more often the case. Sure. But by and large, the hotel business realizes that there's only so many ways you can configure a bed and a toilet and a shower. And to that end, if they want to develop customer allegiance, they need to listen. And they need to respond in kind. So as the consumers have become more vocal about healthier foods and better workout areas and amenities that will support their long-term goals, hotels then in turn will respond to that. And I mean, I don't necessarily expect a 1 or 2 star roadside motel that's unaffiliated to do that. But imagine if you did check into something off of, Route 66 in the middle of a long barren stretch, and they had a cold plunge next to the pool. Wow. It would delight you. It would be something that would be completely unexpected. So I think the back and forth is that consumers are becoming more vocal and hoteliers are becoming more responsive. And the easiest places to see that are in the guest room and, quite frankly, in the food and beverage.
Well, there's so much we can talk about. I do want everyone to know that if you subscribe to our newsletter, and you will see exactly how to do that in the show notes, you get a free prize. What is the free prize? It was supposed to be a surprise, but I'll tell everybody. It's how to use AI. And one of the things to plan your trip easily, even if you're not tech savvy. And it's so important. But in that little ebook that you get for free, it talks about how the travel industry is using AI. And one of those ways is hotel robots, where the concierge is a robot. And there's actually a robot named Connie that's going to be used by a major chain everywhere. Good news or bad news? I don't know, but it's certainly another discussion that we're going to have. So there's so much to talk about when it comes to hotels that we didn't even scratch the surface here. But you will be on again, and I thank you so much. And I remind everybody of a couple of things. Go to the Ask Adrian, which you will see right here on the show notes, and you can send a text. If that is something difficult for you, go to FamList, which you will also see on the show notes, and you can leave a voicemail. So you can ask us questions. That's what we're here for. And we also have a friend of mine, and her name is Sally Zing, Z-I-N-G, and she will send you information every week about staying healthier. So again, take a look at the show notes. You'll be able to get her Wellness Wednesdays. and take a look at our show notes to see our Travel Tuesdays. I guess we all have alliterations. And that is our free weekly newsletter, Travel Tuesday. So thank you so much, Peter. This has been terrific.
Well, thank you. It's been delightful.
And for everybody else, you know what I'm going to say? Never stop traveling.